I'm Benjamin Snow. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Civocracy.org, and we're excited to be hosting this Ellen MacArthur open mic diff on participation, harnessing civic tech for better circular decision making. So let's get started. So to start off, let's talk about what is civic tech so we understand how these things relate. So civic tech leverages technology to bridge the divide between citizens and government. And so what that means is that it uses technology, often the internet, to help create an easier set of tools or an easier way to participate between elected officials and between communities. What are some of the challenges of civic tech? What we've encountered is how do you best involve the different stakeholders involved? You have a lot of different actors in a community, and how do you get them all to participate? Another is how do you measure impact? How do you understand the way that you're creating change in a community? And third, it's how do you link online participation, so a lot of that happens already, with offline participation? How do you know what's happening in communities and how one relates to the other? It's important to understand how this relates to the circular economy. And longevity and repairability, for making products recyclable, for reusing inputs and outputs, and for creating and supporting business opportunities. And so what you see is there's a lot moving and a lot of moving parts there, and it's important to understand how these two things relate. To do that, we have to look at, we have these models for disposing, make, using, and disposing that depend on customer and policy behavior. So that's citizens and that's government. And so if you're going to create circular models, you need a civic circular environment. And that's really our proposition, is that if you want to have a successful circular economy, if you want to create a circular product, you have to incorporate all of the stakeholders necessary for creating that process. How do you do that exactly? Our argument is that these two things are very interrelated. There's an importance in the circular economy in creating all of these different longevity, repairability, supporting business models, and to do that, there's a host of actors involved, which really relates to how civic tech works. You need to be able to bring about circular models. You have to be able to include numerous players, numerous stakeholders. You need to get the general public involved. And I think that that's one limitation we've seen, is that the circular economy, if it's too focused as a niche, or if it's too focused as only for kind of the high and lofty, the academics, but it doesn't reach the general public, it's a strong limitation. To do this, you have to answer a few questions. You have to say, who are the stakeholders and how are they involved? You have to somehow say, how does the theory translate into action for an ordinary person? You're making a change in a cycle that's currently around consumption. You're trying to make it a circular economic cycle. How do you best do that, and who's involved in that on a customer-consumer basis? And then it involves their participation. How do you get them to participate? How do you reach them and get them to be part of this participation process? And lastly, how do you bring all the other actors involved, whether that's the business community, the policymakers, or the general public, so that they can not only agree with you and participate in this process, but also co-create, also be part of understanding and deciding how this process can take place. Where we see the potential positive relationship between civic tech and between the circular economy is where can they help each other? It's that technology and media have a disruptive effect on communication. They make it much easier for you to reach communities, for you to use the media, and for you to reach out to touch all of these different stakeholders in decision making and co-creation. Secondly, it's about alignment. It's about you need to bring all of these actors into one process together. They need to both have agreement, or where there's disagreement, work that out so that you have a common place to start from. Lastly, it's about reverse cycles and co-creation. Meaning, how do we bring those who are not traditionally part of this cycle or part of this institution or part of this chain within this cycle? And so it's about how do we bring the wider society to be part of the decision-making and part of the consumption and creation process that the circular economy is all about. Briefly about how we do that at Civocracy. And so what Civocracy does is we're an online platform that facilitates discussion, decision-making, and engagement for direct impact in communities. What we do is we create awareness by curating the best content and helping, allowing a community to do this on our platform. We allow people to add stakeholders around any issue they care about so that they can identify who are the decision makers most relevant to this action or to this organization or to this decision. It allows you to harness innovation. So you say, where are the best ideas for making better circular decisions and how do we incorporate these? And lastly, it's action-oriented. So it says, what are the best ways for me to get involved in this? Not just give my opinion about what could be done, but also to find ways to get involved and to learn more and to participate both online and offline. So far, we've introduced the circular economy, we've introduced civic tech, and the relationship between them. We've also introduced Civocracy, our platform, which incorporates civic tech possibilities and a platform as a way of bringing stakeholders together to create better and co-create better decision-making and possibilities for communities within the circular economic environment. What we think that creates is a potential for better circular economy decision-making and for bringing the circular economy down to the ground level to the general population and incorporating wider communities within it. Next, I'd like to introduce Vittoria Grasso. She'll be giving a real-life example of what this looks like with a real use case, and lastly, she'll be interviewing a project that is currently working within this circular economy and get some input and insight on how that project is both going along and how they relate to this idea, how they work with stakeholders, and how they try to create better decisions and outcomes by harnessing the power of different stakeholders.
Victoria, I'm also working with Civocracy, and so far we've talked about the circular economy, its shortcomings, civic tech, its shortcomings, how they can merge together. But now I wanted to present you with the practicalities of it. How would it work in real life? So imagine I'm a local supermarket owner and I want to become more circular. I start facing all these business challenges from all these different fields that interact with what I'm doing as a local supermarket owner. I've got policymakers putting regulations regarding expiry dates. I can't sell already expired food, even if it's still edible, I have to throw it away. I can't sell food that doesn't look pretty. I can't sell unpackaged food either. So what Civocracy would do in this case is bring all these different actors that have any kind of influence on how my business works and get them into a conversation. So we would have policymakers on one side figuring out how they could make regulations that are good for the customers and the consumers, but that are also good for me as a business owner that wants to become more circular. We have the local charities, which would greatly benefit from supplies of food that will otherwise be wasted. We've got citizen initiatives that work with, they prepare food from these food that would otherwise go to waste. We've got organizations that also deal not only with the regulations and with initiatives dealing with less food waste, but that also try to raise awareness about this problem. And we have the local farmers, which could possibly bring local supply to my supermarket, and I wouldn't be in need to always be wasting food because I would get it in a more demand-wise manner. And what would happen in this place is that all these actors would have the opportunity to talk and fill in the different gaps and recognize where the gaps are. So now that we've finished with the practical part, we'd like to introduce LICO, which is a local initiative from a social entrepreneur. It's a non-profit organization that is trying to change the way we produce, use and recycle our nappies. What they do is that they turn the diapers, which contain rich nutrients, into fertile and safe black humus, which is then used to plant trees for local communities. Then once these trees are planted, they provide for the material that's going to be used to make diapers, so that it's a completely sustainable circle. They have a rich scope of stakeholders, which is why we have brought her on to speak with us. They have the local government, which is responsible for providing the land they use. They have a variety of social entrepreneurs working with the logistics. They have the scientist community also engaged in devising this whole process. And they have finally the consumers and citizens, which initiate and use these products. a circular economy entrepreneur who has a circular initiative around diapers. So it's called DICO. So, Ayumi, would you like to introduce what DICO is? What do you do?
Yes, that's DICO means diaper cycle, and we are making the black soil that we have today out of baby diapers. And then we grow fruit trees out of these nutrients.
Okay, and how does it work? You sell the diapers?
No, we do not sell the diapers. We offer the service that the community of the parents could take these initiations and then, yes, distribute the compostable, 100% compostable diapers and then collect every week. And then we take care to make this black soil.
Okay, so you collect everything and then you do it yourself. For what purpose? Is there anything specific that you use the compost for? Or
Okay, because that's our bodily waste. Still contain very good nutrients. So we could use these nutrients to grow trees and plants, so we could gain these nutrients back for our daily life. This is the idea.
we were talking about before about the problem in the circular economies with stakeholders and bringing everyone together. Who would you say are the primary stakeholders for the project?
Yes, at this moment we have a soil scientist, botanic garden, they are expert of nutrients, and engineers that they take care of the machine to make the diapers actually, and then also microbiologists who can find the specific fungi to break down the diaper cellulose, and yes, compost producers, and ourselves, and important parents, and company who like to plant trees also.
And how did you organize and coordinate with all of these different scientific communities, business communities, people?
How?
Yes. How would you see the cooperation? How does it work?
I guess each of them have their own wish and aspirations to this idea. Each of them have different goals, and yes, we built up what we could do first. I think that it's a natural method that when you have different layers, we cannot plan what is a first.
See this as a problem in the future. What do you think it is important to connect policymakers with your community and the scientist community, and why would you deem it important or not important?
Okay, that's a question of hygiene. It's very important to work with a scientist, and because we do like to have a very healthy soil and keep ourselves very healthy. So we are working with a scientist team that they really take care of these hygiene matters.
And with the policymakers, there's still no kind of...
I think policymaker will come. So we do not spend our energy first.
Not yet. But do you think it's important to...
I think so, and the whole flow goes what we have, what we could do. I think this is principle of a blue economy. You start with what you have. So I'm a freelance artist. So I started this nutrient cycle with my own line and with scientists. So they give advice, and I have more talent to translate this scientific side to more easy work, drawing, making a video, so that many people understand. And then now I show how to do it in museum, gallery, and then I started my companies.
Okay, so to wrap up a little bit what Ayumi said, it is very important to have these different stakeholders. You have primarily the scientists who take care of doing this whole process, making it possible, but it's also very important to be able to translate it in a practical way.
Yeah.
For consumers to also be able to participate and also, as you said, be initiators of this whole circular economy process. So citizens are the core issue here.
Yes.
Because they're both the consumers and the initiators for these kind of issues.